So thanks for inviting me here, and I'll speak fairly briefly. I think Alicia gave you a really good comprehensive view of green cleaning and what it is involved in the practice of a green cleaning program. And by the way, I kind of do not like the word green cleaning that much because it gives the impression that we're only talking about environmental issues, and I think 90% of green cleaning is really about worker health and the health of people who are in the building. There are certainly are environmental issues as well with what runs down the drain, but it's the word we have. I'm going to give you some case studies from San Francisco, and we have been doing green cleaning in its various forms for at least 10 years or longer, depending on how you define it. I'm going to talk about what we do and what we don't do, some of the successes and non-successes, or maybe I should say challenges. A little bit about green building and LEED and how that fits into the picture of green cleaning programs. And then just a little bit more on product costs from a study that we did, just a market survey on product costs. I can't resist, first of all, talking a little bit about what got us into this business in the first place. We all would like to just trust what's on the shelf as being safe and sufficiently regulated that we don't have to worry about health hazards and so forth. But over 10 years ago, the EPA did a survey of the high-volume production chemicals that are out there, 3,000 chemicals, I think, that are produced in quantities of 1 million pounds a year or more. And they looked at how much toxicity data there was available for these products. And when I heard this, it sort of blew me away, and I think it blew a lot of people away. If you ask the question, how many of these products have a full toxicity data set as defined by OECD, you would find, it's going slowly. There's the little hourglass. We're just building up the suspense. Here we go. 43% had no data whatsoever in the early study they did on this, and I believe it was in 1999 or 98. 7%, only 7% had complete toxicity data sets associated with them. Now, in checking back with the EPA on the status of these chemicals, it has not improved by much at all because there are about 1,000 new chemicals a year. That study also asked about people's attitudes and opinions about the safety of products. And most people believed that the government was watching out for them and that we knew that these products were safe if they were on the shelf. So there is a big disconnect between what we know, what we don't know about toxicity and hazards of products. And for this reason, we in San Francisco took the initiative to kind of push the envelope, I think, on choosing safer products. We have a unique context in San Francisco. We have a lot of community support for these sorts of initiatives. We have a tendency to legislate everything, including how city departments work, where a normal city might just have a policy. We pass an ordinance. It's just the way things are in San Francisco. We have something called the precautionary principle that's enshrined in our Environment Code. How many of you have heard of precautionary principle? Not many. Okay. That would take an hour to talk about the precautionary principle and do it justice, but let me just say that it means that we take a proactive stance towards protecting our citizens. And if there is a product that we know has some hazards and there's something safer that's out there and does the same job, we'll choose the safer one if we can. We also have our own department devoted to environmental issues, which is kind of unusual. And some things that are not unusual at all. We have some very antiquated systems, including software for tracking what we buy and what we don't buy. And we're a city. We have pretty high density and a lot of the usual gritty city problems. So, you know, people might think we're a little unusual, that we have a unique situation. By the way, contrary to popular belief, this is not my staff at a retreat. But we have probably 80% of the same problems that any other city does in getting these programs in place, or 90%. Those typical problems are how to get something that is affordable, that works, and that is safe for our workers. So I just want to sketch out the way our program works in San Francisco. We have three big players in the green purchasing program. The city purchaser, and I'm sure every city has some sort of department that's devoted to putting out contracts and getting the best prices on things. We have the Department of the Environment, which is us, and as I said, this is sort of a unique configuration because we are not a regulatory department. We are strictly dedicated towards reducing waste in the city. And then we have green teams. It's what we call our internal stakeholder groups, or end user groups, that we set up around various products that we buy. And the city purchaser, as they are required to do, focuses mainly on getting the best deal. The green teams are the people who use the products, and we rely on them very heavily to tell us what is working for them, what's not working for them, what their needs are. And then our emphasis at the department is on impact, and that would be worker health, environmental, even social impact of some products. So this is the basic arrangement, the basic way we like to think about the program. And there are a lot of other interactions that go on internally in implementing the program. What we do in the city is primarily developing environmental specifications and contract language that results from that. Under the city ordinance, we are empowered to actually tell the departments what they can do, what they can't and can buy on city contracts. And this is, in some ways, a theoretical power because it's very difficult to keep track. It's very difficult to enforce. We have maybe 3 people available to look at these things over a population of 30,000 city employees. Also, we tread very softly because if we put out a specification that is unrealistic, products that don't work for them, they're going to be very quick to just throw the whole thing out and say, the heck with it, we're going to buy what we were buying before. If they catch us, okay, not a big deal, I still have my job. So these are kind of typical, I guess, government worker problems and challenges. We have to figure out ways to work with the people in the city government to make this program work. One way that we think works pretty well is to be really clear about what is and is not allowed and what it is that we are promoting. So in our ordinance in the city, we have something called an approved alternative products list that we are required to maintain. So it's just a list of products that you are supposed to be buying. We call it the SF approved list. It's on a website I'll show you in a moment. And it provides an easy way for the city departments to just check in. If they're going to buy toilet paper, they can look on SF approved, see what's on the city contract, see what kind of recommendations we're making, and hopefully make the right choice. Another part, as I mentioned, a big part of our program is the stakeholder process. And Alicia talked about the process that Santa Clara County went through in developing their contract for janitorial cleaners and products. Well, we have some of these teams for other areas as well, like pesticides and lighting, that have been absolutely indispensable to making the right choice. So we are not, at the Department of the Environment, we do not know that much about cleaning. We're not the experts on cleaning. It's the custodial supervisors who are dealing with it every day. So we have to honor that expertise and get them involved in telling us what's missing here. We also have training, and we believe that training is really essential to implementing any kind of a green cleaning program, and I think Alicia would echo that. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. And then monitoring what people are purchasing, which is a huge challenge. So Alicia touched on this a little bit, but I just want to emphasize that simplicity is really important in this complex world. And she talked about a lot of different kinds of products that we want to look for in the ideal green cleaning program, a lot of different kinds of specifications and eco-labels. And it might seem overwhelming. It does for a lot of people in our city to try to take all that in and make it happen. And I think my take-home message is it doesn't have to be complicated, or you don't have to do it all at once. Depending on your own resources, you can start fairly simply and get some very big accomplishments under your belt. So one easy way that Alicia talked about was using the third-party certifications. So what our purchasers look for is something they can put on one line in a bid sheet that says, this is what we want. They really do not want to deal with technical specifications. They don't want to deal with any kind of reviewing material safety data sheets, hazardous chemicals, carcinogens, reproductive toxins. And that's where the third-party certifications really click for purchasers. And I think this probably applies to purchasers anywhere. They can just write Green Seal Certified GS37 General Purpose Cleaner in an automatic dilution system, closed loop, end of story. They're done. So this is one of, on the easy spectrum, this is one of the very easy things that can be done in almost any jurisdiction. The same goes for some of the model contract language Alicia was talking about. There are a lot of people doing green purchasing right now, including the federal government in a very big way. And there's a lot of language out there. Go check out responsiblepurchasing.org. There's a really nice set of resources there. Now, in our early days in our program, we were not at all happy with some of the specifications that were out there. And we ended up developing our own. We still do develop our own in many cases. But that is the next level up and can take quite a bit of effort. It often means hiring a consultant to help you. You can get on the extreme end of effort on these matters and conduct life cycle assessments, which I don't know anyone who's done that for a purchasing project, but it, is in some ways the ultimate goal is to figure out every impact of this product from beginning to end. Or falling short of that, what a lot of people are calling alternatives analysis, which is a little more attainable, and that is kind of making a big matrix of everything we care about in these products and comparing them on multiple variables. So, I mean, as Alicia was pointing out, you can't just trust the manufacturer's claims. And I always like to quote the late Ray Anderson, who's the founder of Interface Carpet. In God we trust, all others bring data. We want that certification. And when we hear a claim about a product being green, the first thing we usually ask is it certified? There are many eco-labels out there. It can be dizzying to sort them all out. That's why we have groups like Responsible Purchasing Network. And I'll leave it at that. I think a certain amount of compassion for the purchaser's job is also required in order to make these programs work. And in our case, our purchasers have to deal with an awful lot of other requirements for contracts, probably a lot more than many other cities. We have specific requirements on local business enterprises. We have social factors that are taken into effect with the sweat-free ordinance. You know, are these workers being paid a living wage? Are there domestic partner benefits? Are we doing business with Burma? A whole long list of things. So again, simplicity is everything for making these things work. So this is what our SF-approved list website looks like. And there's a directory along the left-hand bar. And I encourage you to have a look at it. I consider it to still be in a beta stage. Maybe it will always be in a beta stage. We did just add a new feature, which I'm very excited about, which is letting people enter product reviews. Not just anybody. It's restricted to people who have a password on the site, who set up a password for themselves, so that we can filter out viral marketing people who want to just promote their own product. But our idea is that if someone at the airport sees that someone at Recreation and Parks Department loves this product, that means something. And that's what we're hoping to do. So this is available for staff in your jurisdictions too. Have a look and see if it works for you. I mentioned the stakeholder process as being maybe the most critical factor in helping these things work. And we have a kind of a long tradition of this dating back to the beginnings of our integrated pest management program on city properties. What we realized was there were a lot of different ideas in that case about what constituted effective and safe pest management. And the best way to solve that was to pull everyone into one room on a regular basis, feed them bagels and coffee, and let them talk it out. And we've been doing that now for 14 years every month with that particular program. And that served as a model for the green teams in these other product areas, which I think are now starting to, at least with the custodial green team in particular, it's kind of developing its own identity now. And they end up doing their own sort of self-policing and have their own conversations about these topics. What works for you? What doesn't work? Why are you using that stuff? That's dangerous. Use this instead. These are the kind of conversations that we often have. It provides reality checks for whatever it is we're proposing to do. It's a way of finding out what works, and it gets buy-in. There's a lot of buy-in, not just from the people in the room, but from the departments that they represent. So I really encourage anyone, especially in the government, to form these kinds of teams when you're making this kind of transition to a green purchasing program. We've had lots and lots of horror stories in the city as we've rolled out the green cleaning program. And I'm not going to name the departments, we've had 55-gallon drums full of corrosive disinfectants, the lid off, people scooping buckets with no goggles into their mop buckets, splashing around. Would have been very easy for them to have a drop go in their eye and potentially go blind or partially blind. We've had, oops, I think I just accidentally shifted that. We've had cases where departments were requiring their custodians to strip floors every other week, which it should be more like every year or less. Stripping floors is one of something Alicia didn't actually mention, but one of the most hazardous things that goes on in a cleaning program is the use of floor stripper. It's a very, very toxic product, and to the extent that you can minimize the need to strip floors, you'll be protecting your workers and your occupants a huge amount. And of course, a lot of cases where people are just using disinfectants everywhere for everything, even if it's for daily cleaning of the office floors. under the illusion that they're killing germs and keeping people safe. But as was pointed out, if they're not leaving it there for 10 minutes, for example, they're probably not killing the germs they think they're killing. And who needs to eat off of an office floor anyway? If you can get 99.9% of the germs by using a general purpose cleaner, that is going to be good enough for any office floor. Okay, I think that was a duplicate. I mentioned that monitoring what is purchased is a huge challenge for us. And this is a case where I think other cities probably have it a lot easier because they may have newer software in place for purchasing than we do. Ours dates back to the late 70s, I think. And just the take-home message here is that we could not get data on what we were buying from our own system. We had to get reports from the vendors on how much they've sold to us each month and put them together every year into a summary. And this was a huge amount of effort. We took it to, we put a lot of time into it that others may not want to put into it. You will find that there are other options with some contracts, like with office supplies, for example. The vendor themselves can give you a pretty good report. At least with some of the vendors, they can give you a pretty good report on what you've bought. That takes no effort at all. With other vendors, you may find that you want to just focus on some indicator products. How many cases of recycled content paper towels have we purchased versus non-recycled content, or rechargeable batteries versus non-rechargeable, and just decide what's really important for you and just use those as your indicators. So in trying to simplify it down, there are some things that you can prioritize and deprioritize in a green cleaning program. I mentioned that specification development takes a lot of effort. If you have an eco-label available for a particular product, you can cut that out, for example. You may not want to have something like the SF-approved list, which takes a certain amount of our time. You may want to have something simpler for your clientele. I would encourage people to monitor purchasing in any way possible, but if you have to cut it down to the bare bones, as I mentioned, you can do it with indicator products or with a subset of your contracts. What I would keep would be, of course, the contract language, depending on how you buy things in your city, that stakeholder process, and training. And training, oh, I actually had training crossed off. There are cases, especially with green cleaning now, where you can get the vendor to do the work for you. When we first started out with our program, this was not something that was available. And it's actually been wonderful watching this develop over the years. When we had our first contract in place for janitorial cleaners, Green Seal was quite a weak standard, and we decided it was just not what we needed in terms of protection. So we went to a lot of effort to make our own standard. There are also no trainings available. We had to do our own training. Now, most of the major vendors have training programs available on this subject, some of them very good. And if you work that into your contract, that's another way that you can make it more doable for yourself. So just a few words about how this fits into the green building world. There are a lot of cities that are pursuing this now as part of their enterprise. And green building and LEED is another certification, another third-party certification that covers an awful lot of things. And it's very convenient, just like with other products, just like with cleaning products or tissue paper. It's very easy to just put everything under one roof, require certification, and you've got your energy efficiency, you've got your safe interior spaces, you've got your recycled content, and so forth. One variety, one flavor of the LEED program, LEED certification, is called Existing Buildings, Operations, and Maintenance. That's EBOM. they call it. We love acronyms here. And that is a very popular certification now because it is ongoing. It is about how you maintain your existing buildings. In that is a green cleaning policy is required, and there are models out there available. A custodial effectiveness assessment, and there are standard ways to do that. Can also get you a point, but that's optional. Products and materials are probably the most popular point that people go for in a green building world, I think. And that requires 75% of your purchases meeting the specs that are laid out in the green building in that certification list. And mostly that means Green Seal and Eco Logo, excuse me. Everything that's been said today about how to buy green products can win you a point in the green building checklist. There is also another point for getting particular kinds of energy efficient equipment and low dust equipment, low noise equipment in your facility. I know we're a little short on time, so I do want to mention a survey that we did on green products because, like most other people, most other agencies, cost is often the #1 factor that people are looking at. And there is a mythology at this point that green products cost more and don't work as well. That is no longer true. There is now a very long list of third-party certified green cleaning products, hundreds of them under Green Seal and Eco Logo both, with a wide variety of agencies all over the country and all over the world using them effectively. And early on, there definitely was a cost difference in using some of these products. We decided to revisit that. Year before last, we did a survey of 383 products. This is just the cost you pay for the product, you know, in its diluted form. So we wanted to be able to compare apples to apples. It's not thinking about health benefits. It's not thinking about how much you save by using an automatic dilution system or microfibers, or any of those things that Alicia mentioned. And the prices, I was really surprised to see the prices were equivalent for almost all of the categories of products that we looked at. And there's a couple of good back pocket statistics that came out of this as well that you might find useful in your programs. One is ready-to-use products are 15 times more expensive than concentrates. Well, most janitorial programs use concentrates anyway. However, if you're working with businesses in your community, for example, with a green business program, this is a good message. You can have a safer cleaning program in your business, and you can save a lot of money just by moving to certified institutional grade concentrate products. And that's something we're putting out there in San Francisco right now. And it's a pretty good selling point. And it's absolutely true. So also aerosols, as Alicia mentioned, are way more expensive than concentrates, 27 times more expensive for the same amount of product. So avoiding aerosols at all costs, that wasn't supposed to be a pun, but it's a good thing to avoid. Trigger sprays are usually just as good, just as effective for many products. There are a few exceptions to that. And these are some of the numbers that we came out with on the price comparisons. I'm not going to go into the brutal details on this, but if you look at the conventional at the top and the green at the bottom, you see that the prices are comparable. There was no significant differences on any of these except floor strippers were actually significantly more expensive with the conventional, which kind of puzzled me. I think it has to do with the price of the chemical ingredients they use in those products. So that's all I have for right now. I wanted to allow a little bit of time for questions. Thanks for inviting me here.